Roll for the regular meeting starting at 7:30. On the 12th of October, Councilor Z. Here. Councilor Connell.
Present.
Councilor Devlin is absent. Councilor Khan. Councilor Khan. Councilor Khan, Councilor Lane.
Here.
Councilor McCauley.
Here.
Councilor Shan.
Here.
Councilor Tontar.
Here.
Councilor Vogel. Present. Councilor Wallace is absent. Councilor Khan.
Present.
Councilor Reagan.
Please rise for the pledge of allegiance. Pledge allegiance
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
There are 7 of them, Mr. President. It is Communication 358, School Strategic Plan Documents. Communication 359, City Solicitor Opinion on Residency Requirements. Appointment 273, Leslie Eckel, 36 Warren Street, for the Waterfront Trust until 12/31/2023. Communication 282, letter from Jim McCarthy regarding a sign proposal. Ordinance 89, off-street parking regulations. Ordinance 99, Carter Street parking restriction. Application 53 by the Greater Newburyport Children's Chorus Candy Song Shop Sing, excuse me.
Motion to waive the rules.
I believe there is an 8 waiting on, sorry.
There is amended language coming in on that off-street parking regulations, which is one of the late files. That's ordinance 89.
And the executive session we just concluded,
There's an executive session we just concluded, which resulted in order that I do not have a unique identifier for it yet, but I could tell you shortly what it would be. The order reads as follows: City Council hereby accepts and recommends to the planning board the settlement contract entered into on October 4th, 2021, by and between the Institution for Savings and the City of Newburyport, including certain exhibits, to wit, an Exhibit 1, 2, a noise study delineating certain calculations, and 3, an actual window example. That is sponsored by Councilor Eileen.
Now, motion to waive the rules and accept the late files.
Second.
any discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. Councilor Ivan.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right, now we're on to the public comment. Thank you, Mayor. I have 10 people attending electronically. Please raise your hand if you wish to speak, but I have 6 people live in person. Each have 2 minutes. Please, when you talk, and hear your name, give your name and your residence address. First name I have is Robert Courier.
Hi, I'm Robert Courier. I live at 3 Summit Place, and here to apply for the position on the Affordable Housing Trust. I've been in this town for 46 years, and I've been on the Historical Commission, Redevelopment Authority, and I have just finished working for the last 12 years for a company by the name of Stratford Capital, which is an affordable housing trust, and people who build affordable housing. I'm a real estate guy that handled all of the tax credit buildings, which is the old historic schools, old mill buildings, and old structures like that. And we then use the tax credits to develop these projects. So I've got a lot of experience in 10 years, and I'm retired now, and I'd like to put my energies into the Affordable Housing Trust. When I moved to this town, it was all affordable. So it's just been eliminated. So I want to be able to bring some of it back. So working with the other committee members through consensus, will do research and bring all this information to the city.
Thank you very much.
Next is James Jones.
I'm James Jones, and I live at 2 Wills Lane, as Ward 2. Paula Burke has asked me to make a few remarks since she's not being able to be here in person. I'm here tonight on behalf of over 200 Newburyport residents that registered this summer and fall to learn and play the game of pickleball. In your council packet, you'll find the fundraising plan for the proposed multi-purpose space, which would accommodate 2 pickleball courts at the senior community center. The plan details our fundraising strategy and provides background information and benefits of pickleball for Newburyport and its residents. Tonight, I would like to highlight a few of the most important points for your consideration. First, our fundraising plan will not cost the city or taxpayers anything. Instead, a task force has been created to draw upon the support of local corporations, businesses and individuals, grants and trusts, and events and programs. Second, there have been numerous studies specific to pickleball that confirms the many health benefits of the sport, including a reduced risk of heart disease and depression, improved cognitive functioning, and increased opportunities for socialization. Third, pickleball benefits our community in many ways, including supporting the city's 2017 master plan goal to create a range of recreational facilities and programs for residents. Finally, the senior community center is the best location for this proposed project because it can ensure that priority is given to Newburyport seniors and residents by using the center's existing software to easily schedule, track, and report pickleball activities. The center would also be able to provide organized play, which is essential in offering complementary lessons, which is a driving factor in increased growth and interest in pickleball here in Newburyport. Thank you for your support and consideration.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Jones. Next is Anita Greenwood, I believe.
Good evening. I'm Anita Greenwood of 151 High Street, which is Ward 3. And I assist James Jones in organising pickleball here in the city of Newburyport. As he said, this summer we had over 200 people who wanted to either play or learn pickleball, but we only had 2 courts at the Brescingham School. Now it's the fall, and on my list, I have over 300 people who want to play or learn pickleball. We have no outdoor facilities for organised play. So we are renting space at the Brown School. But at the Brown School, there are only 2 courts. We can only accommodate 36 people a week. There are a lot of disappointed citizens. So we're asking for your support for the proposed multi-use site at the Senior Community Centre. This will provide 2 pickleball courts and much more access for our citizens to play and learn the sport. In supporting this, you're recognising the health benefits and the benefits to the well-being of our citizens, particularly senior citizens like me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Eileen McCoy.
My name is Eileen McCoy. I live at 132 State Street, Ward 2 in Newburyport. I'm one of the 300 senior citizens who would like to have more courts in Newburyport. So I support the effort that James and Anita have done. My health has significantly improved. I'm 110 years old and I play 4 days a week. I'm kidding, but I am 78 years old. And my health has improved a lot since I started playing pickleball. And I hope that we could get the courts so that we could play even more. So I really hope for your support in this endeavor. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, the pen ran out of ink. I think it's Susan Danamakopoulos.
My name is Susan Danamakopoulos. I live at 69 Turkey Hill Road in Ward 5. And I'm here to just reiterate and really support what's been said before me in terms of supporting the building of the 2 pickleball courts behind the senior center. I've been fortunate enough to be one of those 300 people who's managed to get in a few times to play. And I'm very grateful for the Newburyport pickleball efforts that James and Anita have done, because I've been fortunate enough to learn how to play and be part of that community, which has been very, very good in terms of just community building and just good fun. So I hope that you will support our effort. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next is Greg Earls, Building Department.
Greg Earls, Conditional Building Commissioner, 2 Sanborn Road, Hampton Falls, New Hampshire. I want to thank the council for entertaining this proposal of electric fee raises. It has not been done since 2009. What I've given you is comparisons, what our proposal was and what they are now. In addition, fees in existing communities and typical jobs, and then comparing them to other communities, typical electrical jobs. One thing that's important to know that since 2009, there has not been an increase, but however, there are salaries that are actually based in here. So the salaries have risen because that's what happened since 2009, but the fees never has. 2 years ago, our wiring inspector asked for these to be risen. That's why that's the document you're seeing. So this actual document is actually 2 years old also. If there's any questions, I'll be watching this from home tonight. So I'll have my hands up if you need me. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next I have online Richard Jerby.
Yes. Yes. Can you hear me?
Yes, go right ahead.
Yes. My name is Richard Jervy, 6 Riley Ave in Ward 1. And I don't want to tie you up, but I do want to support the proposal for a multi-use facility at the senior center. James and Anita have given you a lot of the information, but I do want to emphasize one point, and that I can't tell you the number of people that I've met through pickleball and that I now consider friends. I've only been playing for 3 years, but I've made a lot of friends. Particularly through COVID, it's given us a wonderful opportunity to socialize safely outdoors, and I really think it should be encouraged. So thank you for your support.
Thank you, Mr. Jerby. That's what I have for public comments. Now we're going to the chair's comment. Mayor Holliday,
Good
please.
evening, councilors. I'm not going to repeat all the great comments and support you've heard for pickleball. You know that I support this. I think this is an important opportunity for our city in terms of keeping the health of our seniors. And the fundraising plan, as you've heard, has been developed and will not be a burden on any of the taxpayers in the city. At one of the last budget and finance meetings, it was requested that the CPA application for the tennis courts on the corner of North Nolan School, that the schools and the Parks Department be jointly switched from Friends of Newburyport Tennis. That application was changed. I changed it myself, sent it back to planning. It's gone to CPA. They're meeting tomorrow night and will accept the change in project management, essentially. You've heard from Greg about the electrical fees, that they haven't been upgraded since 2009. I encourage your support of that proposal. Market Landing Park expansion. We continue to work with Sasaki on finalizing the conceptual design. Thank you so much to the members of the ad hoc committee for the work that you've done, and the planning department, and all of our citizens who have weighed in on the survey and provided feedback to the Sasaki team as we continue to move this project forward. The bulkhead, last week we had a meeting with GEI's coastal engineer on the status of the bulkhead and trying to determine if there was a need to elevate the bulkhead as we move forward on the next phase of this renovation to address the continuing degradation of the structure. We plan to incorporate the ability to add to the bulkhead and raise the floorwork in the future, 10 to 15 years, as the need arises. Still some conversations that are happening with GZI's coastal engineer about being able to put some pieces into the design as we go forward that would make it easier to elevate that boardwalk. Reservation terrace work, Anders from GZA completed the updated survey at the request of DCR. Last week, there's been some change in grade out there. You are very familiar with the funding that we've received. from there. I don't have an update on where we are in terms of materials. They were ordered immediately the day after your last meeting when you approved our share of the $500,000 project. I will get back to you. There is a construction on-site meeting, a pre-construction on-site meeting tomorrow, but I will give you more information on that. The first Indigenous Peoples' Day celebration was held at Mosley Park yesterday. It was a great event hosted by the Unitarian Universalist Church and the First Religious Society. Speakers, presenters, performers. Highlights included prayers and acknowledgements from Red Dawn and her family, and other Native Americans were there, reading up your resolution and thanking Councilor Sean for her support. And then Reverend Rebecca, Mary Flynn from the church, Teddy Speck there in the open. We had over 100 people there. It really, really was a nice event. A new community read is being established. This is Their Land by David J. Silverman. And that book will be available at those little free libraries throughout the city for people to pick up, read, and then return for other people, just to keep that in mind. So overall, it was a wonderful day. We did, Richard Banks, who you know, takes care of a lot of flags in our city and donates them. He donated a Indigenous Peoples Healing flag, which we raised on Friday, if you happen to notice that outside. DEI, several of our Alliance members spent 2 full days doing another level of training on crafting successful dialogues. It was very successful, and the group is now working on action plans and moving more of these forums forward. I invite you all to my State of the City, my final State of the City, which I will be giving on October 28th here in City Hall at 7 o'clock. COVID-19, it's really important for everyone to recognize we're still working on some numbers. We had a bad cluster in one of our long-term care facilities last week. Our numbers are significantly higher than they have been throughout the entire pandemic. So the message is that we're not out of this yet. Please, 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 if you haven't been vaccinated, I strongly encourage you to do so. But we unfortunately are still going to be wearing these for a little bit longer. The Rapid Recovery Grant with our consultant, it's 191-page report findings using a 4-part commercial DNA framework. I'll be able to give you more information about that as we plow through this document. But again, it's a set of tactical project recommendations to help us with economic recovery in the city as we move forward. The Plumber Spring Bridge, I had a meeting with the town manager, Angus Jennings. Obviously, our existing MOU has expired this week. It will expire this week. And so we, you know that we had a $1.1 million gap in funding for this project, which I asked you to push it out in the capital plan. So one of the concerns is our small bridge grant and the Mass Works grant that West Newbury has will expire at the end of June 22. So we're trying to reach out to the state to see if they will give us extensions on that and help buy time for us to find some other infrastructure money to cover that $1.1 million gap. Couple of important updates. Mass School Building Authority has given us favorable first run of the statement of interest for the science labs at the high school. They're coming on the 19th, or no, they were coming on the 19th. Now I think it's going to be virtual. I'll give you more information on where we are with that process as it starts to unfold. But this is the first step. We have a public hearing on the global gas station at the corner of State and High Street for 10/25 at 6:30. And then, as you know, we've been working for several years with Mass DOT and their consultant on the Route 1 rotary redesign. And we have finally confirmed a meeting with them on Wednesday, November 10th at 7 p.m.
Thank you. Questions? Councilor McCauley.
Thank you, Mayor, for this. Plumber Springs Bridge, understand you're going through the MOU. I was on the committee, I think it was in planning at the time when we wrote the first MOU with Chief of Staff Coogan. And one of the things that we had agreed to conceptually was a bigger bridge, right? Which is what this design is going for. And that has escalated, that, you know, the cost, et cetera, going forward. one of the things that we talked about, which was, it was discounted at the time because both communities had state money and grant money, and so therefore it wasn't gonna be that big. But one of the designs was actually a one-lane bridge, which would be smaller than the two-lane bridge, obviously. And it had a deck for fishing off it. The one that I think that we're talking about now is a two-lane bridge with a deck as well. My question is, has there been any thought beyond this MOU to addressing the actual design of the bridge to shrink that $1 million gap, as opposed to us trying to get funding?
I certainly will have the conversation with, the town manager, but my understanding is the selectmen are pretty clear about the bridge that they want. So, I mean, I will have the conversation again, they understand that unless we can fill this $1.1 million gap, we might not have no choice but have to downsize. But that, I certainly will have that conversation with them before I sign another MOU.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Councilor Lane.
Just to dovetail on that, there's the detour sign on one time coming into town. Pushes trucks down Turkey Hill Road. Is there any way to talk to the state to get that moved up to Low Street? So we're not directing-
We actually did this once before, in the fact that Turkey Hill was paved at that time. And it's obviously a massive project to do that. And we were very concerned about the number of, large semis that were driving on that road, considering we had just spent all this money to repave it. And we put up a sign to start trucks and to that slab.
Oh, I mean, currently, just currently, there's.
Yeah, I know.
It says detour go down Turkey Hill Road.
But if you could detour it to Low Street. is
Detour
what
to
you're
Low
saying.
Street, and just, it solves some of the problems. on
Okay.
Turkey Hill Road.
Okay, I will certainly move on that tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you. Other councilors? Thank you, Mayor.
I'm in my office and will be listening if anything else comes up.
Thank you very much. To the consent agenda.
Which consists this evening of the approval of the minutes for September 27th. There's one change on page 5. It's communication 349. It's stated there was a motion to approve. It's actually a motion to receive and file. That's the one change with those minutes. Communication 357 is a letter from Jim McCarthy regarding an open space fence to be received and filed. There's an application 52 from the Youth Hockey League Tag Day 11/20/2021 to go to public safety. There are no transfers. The following first reading of appointments, reappointments. Appointment 281, Scott Hamley, 1 Milk Street to the Tree Commission until 11/1/2024. Appointment 282, Pat Cannon, 185 High Street to the Cultural Commission until 10/15/2024. Following is to be referred to the Planning and Development Committee. Appointment 283, Robert Currier, 3 Summit Place Affordable Housing Trust until 10/29/2023. And appointment 284, Ted Beretti, 67 Marlborough Street to the Parks Commission until 10/29/2026. Following items are removed from the respective committees. Communication, Budget and Finance, Communication 311, Order 269, Ordinance 90, Communication 348, and Order 282. Planning and Development, Appointment 273, Communication 282, and Ordinance 89. Public Safety, Application 51, and Order 283. And that, with that one change, is the consent agenda.
Motion to approve as amended.
Second.
Roll call.
Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
yes,
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tonto.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. Yes. Councilor Iden.
Yes. Regular agenda.
Regular agenda is the mayor's up.
Motion to receive. Second. Roll call.
Motion to receive and file. Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor
yes,
Khan. Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tonto.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. Yes. Councilor Iden.
Yes.
Communications, we have communication 358, school strategic plan documents. They are actually in your packet. You'll see that there voluminous. Actually, they are a PDF that is separate from the actual packet. It's too large to
Yep.
submit.
Motion to refer to education?
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Council Z.
Yes.
Council Con.
Yes.
Council Council Lane.
Yes.
Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto.
Yes.
Council Vogel. And Council Ivey.
Yes.
Next, we have communication 359, the city solicitor opinion on residency requirements.
Motion to refer to general government?
Second.
Any discussion?
On the referral, Council Z.
Yes.
Council O'Connell.
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto.
Yes.
Council Vogel. And Council Ivey.
Yes. Application.
We have application 53, which the late filed Greater Newburyport Children's Chorus Candy Shop Sing.
Motion to refer to public safety?
Second.
Discussion.
Council Z.
Yes.
Council O'Connell.
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Yes.
Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto.
Yes.
Council Vogel. And Council Ivey.
Yes. Second reading appointments, we'll take them collectively, if anyone objects. No objection.
We have appointment 274,
Reappointments, not appointments. Take
reappointment,
Five reappointments.
5 reappointments, appointment 274, Anya Elrod, Emma Andrews Library, they're all to October 28, 2022, appointment 275, Elizabeth Valeriani, 29 Oak Street, 276, Virginia R. Champy, 84 Purchase Street, 277, Susan Chase, 44 Oak Street, and 278, Donna Conway, 27 Marlborough Street.
Motion to approve on second reading.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Council Z.
Yes.
Council Con.
Yes.
Council Con.
Yes.
Council Lane. Yes. Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto.
Yes.
Council Vogel. And Council Ivey.
Number 279.
279 is Marcia Edson, 11 Salem Street Tree Commission until 10/15/2024. And appointment 270, 280 is John Moynihan, 415 Portland Street.
I'd like to take those separate.
That's what I thought, sorry.
Yes.
Thank you.
279.
279 on second reading.
Second.
Discussion, roll call.
Council Z.
Yes.
Council Con.
Yes.
Council Con.
Yes.
Lane. Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto.
Yes.
Council Vogel. And Council Ivey.
Yes.
Next, we have appointment 280, which is John Moynihan, 415 Portland Street, Raymond, New Hampshire, to the Cultural Commission until 10/15/2024.
Motion to approve for discussion purposes only.
Second. Discussion. Counselor Khan, Counselor.
Yeah, I believe we'll probably say something similar. Having read the city solicitor's opinion on residency requirements for service on our boards, although I have great respect for the work that Mr. Moynihan does for the arts community throughout the city, particularly in the Firehouse Center, I think it would be inappropriate, and I can't support this nomination for that reason. I don't think we should do something that's potentially illegal. And I'm sure that he'll find many other ways to serve a leadership role in the arts community. Again, this is not based on anything other than the opinion of the solicitor that Mr. Moynihan might not be a suitable applicant because of his lack of residency.
Yeah, I was going to say something similar. I read the city solicitor's opinion to indicate that it, where it is potentially allowed by law, it's really a judgment call. And I kind of don't want to open this can of worms with accepting appointees who are not residents of the city. And I'm prepared to withdraw my second and make this a receive and file out of respect for the applicant. I don't see need to vote it down. I just can't support it if that's the will of the council.
That's a good suggestion. I would withdraw my motion.
All right, so we have a friendly and negative receipt. Do other councilors wish to speak on this matter? Including Councilor Collin, question. Seeing none, roll call.
I have a receiving file by Council Connell and seconded by Council Z. Council Z.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Council Lane. Yes. Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto.
Yes.
Council Vogel and Council Ivan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Now we're on.
Yeah,
to-
all right, one note, I'm sorry, thank you.
We're on to orders, and remember we added order, I guess, 291.
Correct, we have order 286, which would be the crosswalk at Central Congregational Church, Pleasant and Tipton.
We get a motion on that? Anything?
Motion to approve.
Discussion? Councilman
Yeah, I know we've been around. I'm not going to support this. I just don't think that, for two reasons. One is again, also ironically the same, I don't want to open this can of worms. I think crosswalks are made for crossing the street safely. And second is, I did ask in committee if, where our liability might lie if an accident were to occur. And I appreciate the effort to put in that it'll be done under the direction of DPS, but if you've been around for a while, you know about MUTCD and all that stuff, and many of us trying to get crosswalks, just regular crosswalks retained throughout the city, struggle to do so at times. So I'm just not going to support this for those reasons, even though I think it's a fine idea. I just don't want to go down this road and do it again on others elsewhere.
Thank you, Councilor. Other Councilor. Councilor Connell.
Thank you, Mr. President, through you, members. I might remind the members that at our committee report, we voted 3-0 in support of this application, and the reason being that it's, we actually have some experience. There doesn't seem to be lasting harm due to the existing multicolored crosswalk. And we felt and believed at the time of our discussion with the applicants that this was an appropriate and a fitting symbolic statement to kind of bookend the street on which the seat of local government sits. And on that basis, if for no other reason, it seemed appropriate. And the fact that it is being championed by one of the local denominations, feeling very strongly about this with this full support of the Human Rights Commission, we urge you to vote in favor.
Thank you. Other councilors? Seeing none, let's go to roll call, please.
Roll call on the motion to approve order 286, Councilor Z.
No.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
No.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
And Councilor Ivan.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Order 288.
Order 287.
87, sorry.
City Council authorizes payment of the following prior year bills. Waterfront Trust, 1,635 for May and June 2001-73.
Mr. President, motion to take 287, 289, and 290 collectively on refer to budget finance.
Okay, can we read the other three? Sorry.
Yeah, 288 is on establishing,
No, 289 and 290.
sorry, 289 is on,
22 supplemental
Yep.
and Dave's hospital gift acceptance.
correct, you've got it. 289 is supplemental budget, 290 is Energex Hospital gift acceptance.
All right, sorry for bundling that. So it's three orders in one, ongoing budget and finance. Any discussion? Roll call.
The second on that was,
Second.
thank you. Moving to budget and finance, those three, Council Z,
Yes.
Council Connell,
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto.
Yes.
Council Vogel.
Yes.
Council Ivan.
Yes.
That leaves us, I believe, 288, which is, correct, 288? Yes.
Yes.
That is the order establishing the establishment of pickleball courts submitted by Council McCollum.
Motion to send to Newburyport City Services.
Second.
Discussion. Councilor.
Yeah, I put this order in specifically to try to play a little catch up with the council. As you heard tonight in public comment, there's been great study that's gone on about this. We actually have the administration has authorized a contract for a design. You'll hear a little later that Friends of the Council of Aging will pay for that design. But we don't have approval from the council to actually use the land that they did the design on. So what I'm trying to do here with this order is to put in an order to have a public hearing for those residents in Ward 5, so they can have a voice as to whether they do want or don't want pickleball courts in their neighborhood, as well as having the council authorize the use of the land surrounding the Council of Aging to use as a pickleball court. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Other councilors? Roll call.
Neighborhood and City Services, Order 288. Council Z.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto.
Yes.
Council Vogel. Yes. And Council Ivan.
Yes.
291 is the late file order for the was hastily sketched. It reads, shall I, Mr. President?
Please.
Reads as follows: City Council hereby accepts and recommends to the planning board the settlement agreement entered into on October 4th, 2021 by and between the Institute for Savings and the city relating to the litigation to an appeal to the land court of a planning board decision by the Institute for Savings, including certain exhibits, to wit, Exhibit 1, a noise study including calculations and an actual window example submitted Councilor Ivan.
Motion to refer to general government.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Council Z.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor
Yes.
Khan. Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tonto.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. And Councilor Ivan.
Yes.
Thank you.
Clerk Jones, please post the document that was embargoed until tonight at 7:30.
That I will.
Post it on today's meeting page. On the ordinances.
Ordinances, we have the following. Ordinance 87, municipal facility reports, second reading. It's a regarding annual reporting on the condition and operational performance of city-owned buildings.
Second.
And may I make a friendly to include 88 as well,
Yes.
collectively?
Sure.
Friendly?
Any discussion on, that's friendly, so second reading on these two ordinances in tandem. Roll call.
And the first was by Councilor Shan, and the second was.
And I'm sorry, for the benefit of the public, the second is municipal building procurement.
Correct. Roll call, Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tonto.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel and Councilor Ivan.
Yes.
Second reading, motion passes on both ordinances. That leads us to ordinance 93, which is restricting residential permits on campers. That's a second reading also.
Motion approved.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call.
Councilor Z.
No.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tonto.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
Councilor Ivan.
Yes.
That leads us to ordinance 95, which is the abolition of the Civic Commission.
Motion to approve on second reading.
Second.
Roll call.
Roll call on the motion to approve second reading ordinance 95. Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tonto.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. And Councilor Ivan.
Yes.
Then that leads us to permanent parklets legislation, ordinance 98, first introduction.
Motion.
Motion approved. I'm sorry, motion to refer to planning development or is
Well, it's parking, but either one would be appropriate.
Motion to send to the ad hoc committee on outdoor dining. Economic development.
Yeah, okay. Well, what's the motion, really, up to you guys. There's several answers, and actually, I should have said, even though it says parklets, this has to do with all use of public property,
Right.
sidewalks, licensing. It's the same word.
So should it be licensed and permits?
All three are appropriate, all four are appropriate, sorry, four. Really, I just need a motion, it's up to you guys, if you want to do jointly. Eight people would agree. What do you want to do, ad hoc?
Ad hoc, motion to approve, motion to refer to ad hoc.
Okay, so I have that's Councilor, Vogel, seconded by Councilor McCall. Let's do that. Roll call.
To ad hoc committee, Council Z.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Lane.
Yes.
Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tontar. Council Vogel. Council Ivory.
Yes.
That would be ordinance 99, parking restrictions on Carter Street, as submitted by Council Shan.
Motion to send to public safety.
Second.
Discussion. Roll call.
Council Z.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Council Lane. Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tontar.
Yes.
Council Vogel. And Council Ivory.
Yes. All right, committee items. So, the ad hoc committee and economic development, now we have something to do. So we just got ordinance 98, and I'll get the other members and set that for hearing. I will take testimony, so we'll be here. Okay, then Market Landing Park. The mayor alluded to it in her comment. It's a very suburb. We did work hard on that. We had a 4-0 vote on Thursday night to recommend to the council approval of the conceptual design. There was an order that had been referred to us. However, it's not before you tonight. It won't be ready until the 25th, in part because there's a dollar amount that needs to be inserted. The post council is even me. They are the dollar amounts for design, not construction. It's just designers, and Sasaki Associates said on the call that they were going to give us a number, so we won't be blind. Any questions on that?
I do.
Yeah, go ahead.
But I'm not standing anymore, I know. So is it, are you going to clarify, there were some comments in terms of access to the commercial fishing pier?
I'm sorry, I should have said.
And Andy Seifert also has suggested a design. I'm wondering.
Yeah, we went over all of that. We did take into account Andy Seifert, local architects, former NRA directors proposal, but we stuck with the proposal we have. There's no change to that pathway. It's the sense of the committee, and it's recorded, so it's probably best to listen to the recording, but the sense of the committee is that we really don't want to encourage people flying through on their bicycles during the day. You know, if it's off season or there's no one around, they can, but that curve also created design problems that we had not anticipated in 2017, particularly with the boat storage actually. As far as access, we got a revised drawing. Paul Hogg, our harbor master, was working with Sasaki and the fishing boat captains to ensure that a fuel truck, which get in and out, and we did that. And we have a template that the transportation planner from BHP out of Watertown did prove that would fit. We also had fire engine access, which is important for mooring, especially in winter. And it will be, the paths are designed, including the multi-use path that was proposed to move up. By having it down, that allows the fire trucks to get to the embankment. So we get double duty out there. So we saw that. But I also should have said, the order, it was an amendment to the committee. The order when it came in said that we would authorize 20% design funding. And then we had testimony from Sasaki saying that customarily they see 60% as the next threshold, not 20%. So we changed that. However, Councilor Z, who's a co-sponsor of me, wanted to continue to explore 75% as well. So that's still to be determined, 60 versus 75. Sasaki said that their current contract, which could be extended, uses the 75% threshold, not the 60. Okay.
I just wanted to add that we did hear back from the Waterfront Trust that they met and unanimously voted to support this design, and that the Harbor Commission, the chair, also attended the meeting and provided very positive commentary. There were a few comments from the Harbor Commissioner, the chair, but all of them were deemed to be more in the tweaking concept than the, so essentially the vote we took was to approve or recommend approval of the conceptual plan, but that doesn't mean there are not still some questions. It is conceptual, but we got good feedback from both of those boards. You recall, we asked the clerk to message them and ask them to do that. So you may hear that if you listen to the call, but those are two other data points that may be helpful to you.
Other questions?
Just on the rest area, whatever that's being called, any comment on that?
Yeah, strangely enough, it didn't come up, but I raised it because when we were talking about the fee and trying to figure out, how much money we have in the bank right now, roughly we have a little bit south of $500,000 in the bank dedicated for this already, which is amazing. For the report, but and the question is how much it's going to cost to do the 60 or the 75% design. We had Sasaki explained that because there's architecture involved with the bathroom building, whatever it is, that's actually more expensive than even just a design. So one of the things that the council will have to consider when we come back for full debate is whether we want to hold off on the rest area or whatever it is, because it does save money. And then we had I didn't take testimony on it, they didn't write anything, but I had heard through the grapevine that some people didn't like the brick facade, so that's still open.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Budget and finance.
Motion to receive and file communication 311, letter from Councilor Tontar, RE, reducing legal opinion on reducing council salaries.
Second.
This has been before the committee for some time. It's dated March of 2021. If you can remember 2020, which now seems like 100 years ago, we had changed the salaries during the budget process. Councilor Tontar sent this letter. It was referred to committee. We have talked about it on and off over the months, and the committee came to the conclusion that it was probably time to receive and file it. In the discussion, we didn't talk heavily about it, but I don't think there was any objection to the core request here, which is to make the legal opinion public. So we didn't take a vote on that. We took a vote on receiving and filing this, which is the motion I'm bringing to you tonight. But we could, if we wanted to, honor that request as part of that motion or as a separate motion. Again, I don't want to impute anything into the committee that wasn't discussed at length. We primarily just said, this has been here for a while. Do we want to take any further action on it? The conclusion was in committee, not really. So we went for receive and file. I bring it to you with a 3-0 vote in that direction.
Thank you. Councilor Tontar.
Shouldn't we pass this if we want to make it public? I mean, that's all this asks, all right, is the public be allowed to see the statement that KP Law wrote. So, I mean, that's what's asked here, all right? I had to do that in order, if we were to have a broader discussion as to whether or not we wanted to pursue this further, right? But this is just a request to make it public.
Okay, if I may, so I don't want to take off the procedure. It's already been a long night. So how about a motion to receive and file with a waiver of the privilege so that the letter can be made public? Was that
Friendly for me.
Who's the second on that?
I'm okay with that.
Yeah, and we can all do it in one package. I'm not gonna, it's fine procedurally. So we need 6 out of 9 tonight to approve that. So everyone know what we're doing? Yep. Well,
Motion to receive and file with a waiver of the privilege.
no, to receive and file and waive the privilege so that the opinion can be made public.
Right. Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Lane. Yes. Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto.
Yes.
Council Vogel. Yes. And Council Ivey.
Yes. Motion to approve order number 269, which is an acceptance of $15,700 towards the design of the much discussed famed pickleball courts at the Newburyport Senior Center.
Second.
Mr. President, the committee met on this matter twice. In the first committee, a meeting, in both meetings, we had Director Paula Burke, the Director of the Council on Aging, attend, and we had a variety of the public attend, some of whom came tonight, both personally and on behalf of the Friends on Council on Aging. To summarize the two committee meetings, unfortunately, in the first meeting, we spent a lot of time discussing procedure because we discovered that the mayor had actually already executed a contract for this design. We did discuss at length whether that was really a commitment or binding. The finance director stated that because it never came to the council, it technically wouldn't be binding, but we spent, again, several minutes, half an hour, with a little bit of frustration, honestly, about that. And it was clearly evidence. The reason we figured it out is, essentially we got a motion or an order to accept the money, but the design had technically already been done. And that was pretty obvious from the submission. So some frustration with that. We came back for a second meeting with a little bit of a refreshed perspective moving on from that challenge, and really spent some more time talking about the actual project itself. And I would say the discussion centered around a couple things. One was, what's really the plan to pay for this, to build it? And then the second one was really about the permission to use the land, and sort of, again, the cart before the horse concept about not having had approval to use public land and then backing into a design. So I think I would say that we made an effort to address both by way of amendments, and that amendment was included in the packet. And basically, it says three things. One is the intent here is that they're going to keep going on the fundraising, and they're going to raise the money to build this, which, by the way, is estimated at roughly $200,000 plus or minus, depending on the final outcome. Second is that we did discuss at length ensuring that we could use this for Newburyport residents first, and that was plugged into the amendment. And finally was conditioning the acceptance on permission to use the land. Councilor McCauley then, on his own accord, it being his ward, has submitted an order which is separate from this one and has been referred to committee tonight to address that. I want to note that the first two are just imputing intent. They don't say they will raise the money. So this is the intent. And as you can see, they did provide a fundraising plan where they indicate how they intend to hopefully raise the money to do so. The final area of discussion was probably about the physical space. And, is this land that has other value to the city? Is this, maybe the highest and best use, to use that term? And we did discuss that at length. Certainly the director was very supportive of this as a good use and a positive thing, positive addition for the Council on Aging. I did ask about, is this any space that we could ever talk about for NYS that we would ever want to? And the conclusion generally was that that's a big question and didn't really get answered at that time. So I don't know the answer to that one, but didn't feel necessarily that this would preclude that. So 3-0, we recommend that we accept these funds. Again, essentially the design's already been done. You can basically read it. And then, there are those conditions that put in the amendment as far as intent, to which there's nothing further to do. And you'd essentially have another discussion, I believe, in neighborhood and city services on the actual use of the land, where neighbors would ostensibly be included in that discussion that we're not in this one. And that is the outcome of the committee deliberation.
Thank you, Chair. Any other questions, comments, debate? Councilor.
Thank you, Mr. President. If I may, to the chair. So in the amendment, there's this, we're looking at Newburyport residents have priority over the use. The senior center is used by others than Newburyport residents. Is the staff of the senior center then going to manage all that? Is that what the intent is?
Yes. So, first of all, this is the intent, is to prefer Newburyport residents. There is a scheduling component to this. One of the discussion paths we took was about general maintenance and operation of these courts. The director stated that they changed the job description to include somebody who's driving the COA bus to also have a component of sort of management of this and keeping it clean and maintenance, because we raised what are the ongoing costs once this is built. because of course, we're looking for fundraising to build, but not to maintain. So essentially, this gets plugged into the sort of greater senior center operations where they're already managing space of different types for different uses, including residents and non-residents. And essentially, we're just saying that we really, when there is a constraint, we would like to find a way to prefer Newburyport residents over outsiders, outside non-residents.
Thank you very much.
Hope that helps.
Other councils, Councilor McCall.
Council President, thank you. I supported coming out of the committee. I thought it was important for the committee to hear about it. I am personally going to vote no on it. The order of operations of this was out of sequence. I think it, in many ways, we've heard earlier tonight, people not wanting to vote because it set precedent. This, in a way, will set precedent. There's a private organization that has come in and done a design on public land without any approval of the public body or hearings of that, and then they want to pay for it going forward. It has nothing to do with whether pickleball is good or not, but the precedent is that it would be no different than another developer saw a piece of land that they thought would be good for, let's say, a water park, and they spent our time and effort and resources to do that design, because this wasn't a design that was done in a vacuum. The director of Council of Aging was involved. The director of facilities was actually running the bid. So we actually had skin in the game in actually doing this. I think this sets a bad precedent for private and outside fundraising companies to come in and do designs on our public ways without us having a say in it. So for that, I know we're trying to get this back in order, but for that reason, I'm just going to make a stand and vote. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor. Other councilors? Not seeing any hands. Roll call.
Roll call on the motion to approve. Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
No.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tonto.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. Yes. Councilor Argument.
Yes.
Mr. President, motion to approve ordinance 90, an ordinance relative to electrical permit fees.
Second.
Mr. President, the committee met on this item. The interim building commissioner attended and walked us through. I don't know that I can add much more than what you heard in public comment. Haven't been done in a while. They presented both the comparison old and new, but also prototypical projects, street projects, cost in Newburyport, cost in other communities. And that was the basis for the argument to raise the fees. The committee did vote. There was a vote of 2-1 to recommend approval. And the only other thing I want to mention is that the committee, and we talked about this for a little while, is that there is another municipal fee order and ordinance proceeding through committee, which is not coming out tonight. And that the sponsor of that is aware that those fees in that proposal will need to be updated to match when that comes out for your consideration and deliberation. So didn't want anybody to get tripped up and feel that that would be lost in the noise. We debated, should we bring it out now, or bring it out together? But I think in the interest of keeping things clean, since this was signed, it's one ordinance number, this would be passed here. If it does, then the other proposals would be updated accordingly. So again, 2-1 from committee. I was the dissenting vote, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Other councilors, remember that we have the additional building inspector on the line if you have any questions for him.
Roll call on the motion to approve ordinance 90. Councilor Z.
No.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor
Yes.
Khan. Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tonto.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel.
Yes.
And Councilor Argument.
Yes.
Mr. President, motion to receive and file communication 348, year-end report FY21.
Second.
The committee met and deliberated on this. We had Finance Director Ethan Manning join us, who both provided you with substantial written documentation, but also then sort of orally delivered us some reports. Just to give you a couple of highlights without boring you on too many things or getting too bogged down into the details. Overall, FY21 was actually a pretty strong year. Obviously, again, going back to 2020 and a lot of the concerns that we had, revenue in both the general and enterprise funds surpassed with the FY21 estimates, which remember were depressed and conservative because of where we were at the time with COVID and so forth. Fund balances are, there's about $1.2 million of free cash is where we ended the year. We are looking forward to certifying free cash early next month. The estimate is going to be somewhere in the $2 to $2.5 million range at that conclusion. We did ask, why is there a big swing there? Why can't we estimate closer than $500,000? And the answer is primarily a timing question. So it's not really that Ethan's not confident he can get closer than $500,000, but it's a question of where things post in terms of what the final things will be. A couple of other trends that may be of interest to you: motor vehicle excise, which has been strong in the last several years, has slowed down a little bit. The finance director primarily attributed that to challenges in supply chain causing lower volume of new cars to be available, therefore causing a lower number of new cars to be sold. Meals and lodging are getting back to pre-pandemic levels. Building permits were stronger in FY21 than they were in FY20. And, again, there were several other things. I can give you some of the other numbers if you need them, but sort of the long story, high level thing is that FY21 ended in a positive fashion overall, despite, a handful of weaknesses or questions. The 3-0 was the vote to receive and file.
Thank you, Chair. On this one, the finance directors, the auditor online. Anyone has any questions? I'm not seeing any hands.
I just gotta make a comment. We came in conservative because this was the budget process where we did first a 3-month budget, and then we did the next 9 months, and we're very concerned about other revenue. And even though we had a lot of drops in other revenue relative to the year before, came in almost $500,000 over what the estimate had been. And so I think that's a pretty good process. And so I want to congratulate the finance director.
I forgot one other thing that I mean, your number 2. We talked about ARPA a bit, and one thing I wanted to note for you is that ARPA funds can really be spent in one of 2 categories. There's sort of this, very narrow broadband, public infrastructure, public utility sort of space that we've talked about a lot. And then there's a second option, which is you can spend any monies that you can, they call it revenue replacement. So where you can defend or create a defensible argument for monies you would have normally collected, but didn't as a result of the pandemic, you can effectively spend that as free cash, meaning essentially no. So while the year was stronger, Ethan did do the math and has provided an estimate that's in the $1.6 million range for that defensible revenue replacement. And so I thought it was timely to mention that with the FY21, the ARPA ad hoc is supposed to meet sometime this month, maybe early next. And I suspect that, one of the discussions will be if we want to use that money in that way, and then what it is we want to spend it on. Because again, the rest is subject to that restriction. So I forgot to mention that.
Sort of other ARPA is the federal relief funds.
American Recovery,
Rescue.
American Rescue. Yeah, ARPA. Yes, sorry, I apologize. I can't remember. But anyways, I just wanted to mention that just so that when it comes back up in a month or 2, have a heads up as to what we're talking about.
All right. Roll call on receipt and filing.
This is for receipt and filing communication 348. Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Con.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Lane. Yes. Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tontar.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. Yes. Councilor Rock.
Yes.
Mr. President, motion to approve order number 282, which is the matters relating to backhoe, utility body truck, and so forth. Equipment lease order.
Second.
The committee deliberated on this. This is a continuation of a theme you've seen in a couple of recent packets where we had to essentially now treat leases as essentially debt. So we are being asked to approve them in that same way because we are binding future budgets. There are a total of 5 vehicles on here. 4 of them are already done, meaning we already have them. The 5th one is a heavy duty truck for the harbor master. That is not a truck that we own today. That would be a new acquisition. And we did ask in committee kind of what was the deal with that one. And the answer was a couple things. One is the harbor master needs this vehicle because it's a story you've probably heard before, which is if there's personal use of a vehicle. And that led us to ask, well, if there's an equipment stipend being paid or a mileage or a vehicle allotment being paid, what would happen with that? And the answer is that in a corresponding department head's contract, which is also in budget and finance, that stipend is slated to disappear if this truck is acquired. So while the contract is not ready to come out, we were waiting for the red line. We will take that up at our next budget meeting and then presumably bring it out on the 25th. So 4 existing, 1 new, 3-0 in committee to recommend to you. And there are revenues in the harbor master sufficient to cover this.
Councilor Connell?
Yeah, perhaps the chair can answer this. I suspect you asked this question in committee. What is the source of the funding for the harbor master's vehicle? Is it the general fund or is it through the harbor master's retained revenue accounts?
Yes, this is slated to be funded from the harbor master enterprise account. If you need a line item, I would have to.
No, that's fine. That's fine. Thank you.
Councilor Lean?
Just a quick question. It says a lease purchase, so is this a lease? Are we buying to own this or are we leasing this?
These are all, my understanding is these are all lease to own, so we decided, we've beat this up a lot actually in previous budgets where we asked about buying up front versus lease to own versus just lease and then kill the lease. Ethan will certainly correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding is these are all lease to own, and at the end of the lease term, we own the vehicle. So it's just sort of another, you could look at it as a car loan, but it's structured as a lease to own.
I have a question. So is it possible that bonding would be done either for the principal or the interest on this?
If you're asking what's in the realm of possibility, I think the answer is yes, you can bond against these if you want to, but in terms of the practical, these.
No, I mean under the order, because there are 9 of us, I need to know if I need 8 classes.
Well, we are treating them now as, well, you know what, let me defer to Ethan. I think, yes, it is an 8, but I believe that, you know, Ethan can probably definitively answer. It's the same, you know.
Director Nag?
Yes, that is correct, Mr. President. It would fall under the same statute, so I believe you would need a supermajority vote.
Right, thank you. I just wanted to clarify that. Appreciate it. Any other councilors? Yeah, Councilor Lane.
Can you clarify, so that's a lease and then we buy it out at the end?
That's correct. These are all lease to purchase agreements. So at the end of the term, we will own the vehicle.
Is there a balloon you can ask me?
Yeah, so cost effectively wise, is that a good idea or should we just be buying these out from the outset?
Yeah, that's a good question. And we do look at that. So based on where the interest rates are right now, we did contemplate that, but thought that financing them over a number of years would make more sense to smooth out the payments on the equipment so that we can, you know, gradually roll on additional equipment as needed.
Other questions for the director or Nate? Not seeing. Let's do a roll call.
Roll call on approval of order 282. Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane.
Yes.
Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Tonto.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. Councilor Eileen.
Yes.
That's it for items, Mr. President. Just a very quick update. We will be meeting next Tuesday as opposed to our usual Thursday because tonight is Tuesday, unable to post in time. We are going to finish up the final CPC matter. The mayor mentioned that the Knox Tennis Court is reworking its way through the CPC and we'll come back to committee on that day. And then we will continue to work on the municipal fee schedule that both order and ordinance, expecting those to come out. We will work on the transfers and public library annual report and so forth. And we are awaiting the land acquisition orders before our committee and jointly pending the outcome of those discussions. So if you want to attend budget and finance, it'll be next Tuesday, the 19th at 6:30. That's it for budget. Thank you.
Chair Khan, education?
Yes, thank you, Council President. The Education Committee met last week on October 5th, and we talked a little bit about the COVID forum that was done as part of the school committee's meeting last week. That forum is available on Port Media's website. So if people want to watch the Q&A that was done by the medical advisory team, that's part of the informing of school policies related to COVID to the central office. One of the things that I just want to point out for this group here is that we did have some conversation on what really that process is in coming up with decision-making at the schools based on COVID cases, COVID metrics, guidance from the state. There was a little bit of conversation about really, is it the city's Board of Health that actually informs decision-making at the schools, or is it the superintendent? So we wanted to get some clarification since there were some, I would say maybe different perspectives that we kind of speculated on at the meeting. So I'm hoping to follow up and be able to kind of get back to people on really what the process is. The other thing we talked about was the strategic plan focus group. And I thank all the counselors that were able to be part of the conversation with central office as they facilitated a conversation of this focus group with the city councilors. Interestingly, they have already done that type of activity now with 500 people in the community, one of which being obviously the city council, but they've been doing with parent groups, they've been doing with other community leaders. And so one of the things they offered is there were 2 counselors that couldn't make it. They did say they have more focus groups going on. And so I would say the counselors who are not able to attend have an opportunity to join those focus groups if they're so interested to do that. We did talk a little bit about the strategic plan's timeline, and the end of November is kind of the trajectory where they're really trying to hone in on the outcomes of the focus group. So we're hoping in our next meeting in November to talk a little bit more about these outcomes, the 7 points of the strategic plan that's now in our packet and in Education Committee, but really trying to tie some tangible outcomes to them, mainly in a monetary perspective as well. So I encourage anyone who's interested to please keep following this conversation, and we'll be bringing them to the Education Committee next month. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. General government, there are now 2 items in general government that need action. There's the re-precincting plan based on the 2020 census. And now there's Order 291, which I'm sponsoring, which is a proposed litigation settlement with the Institution for Savings. So I will set that. I don't know, frankly, I don't know when it's going to be, but it'll be before the 25th so that both can come out at the 25th, our full meeting. I have to confer with the members. License and permits is Chair Devlin, who's absent. Neighborhoods and city service, Chair Connell. Did you have anything to report tonight?
We're not reporting anything out tonight. We're searching for an appropriate date to meet to pick up a couple of items that are on the agenda.
Thank you very much, Chair. Chair Shan, Planning and Development.
All right, motion to approve appointment 273.
Second.
All right, moving right along. So for those of you who know Ms. Eckhoff, she was on the NRA for many years and was acting as the waterfront liaison at that time. The waterfront is near and dear to her heart, and we thought she was most appropriate to be joining the Waterfront Trust. The committee voted 3-0 to recommend approval of her appointment.
Thank you. Any other councilors? Roll call.
Roll call on the appointment approval. Leslie Echo. Council Z.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Lane. Yes. Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Thompson.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. Yes. And Councilor Reichman.
Yes.
All right, moving right along. Motion to receipt and file communication 282.
Second.
So for those of you who remember, this is Mr. McCarthy was offering to finance putting up a sign in our community, but they could never find a good place to put it. It was recommended to put it at 3 roads, but I believe that has not been, I think that's still in the design stages. And at this point in time, he took the money back and said, we'll wait for another time when there's a better place to put it in the community. So at this point in time, we said it made sense to receive and file this communication. 3-0 committee.
Other councilors, roll call.
Receive and file communication 282. Councilor Z.
Yes.
Councilor Connell.
Yes.
Councilor Khan.
Yes.
Councilor Lane. Yes. Councilor McCauley.
Yes.
Councilor Shan.
Yes.
Councilor Thompson.
Yes.
Councilor Vogel. And Councilor Reichman.
Yes.
All right. Last but not least, motion to approve ordinance 089 as amended in committee tonight.
Second.
All right, so everyone should have on their desk what the amended version of the ordinance looks like. So at the beginning of the, actually it was in September, we met jointly with the planning board and there was some confusion about some of the wording. So we decided to take it back, and Councilor Eileen worked with Attorney Eichmann to make sure that the wording was appropriate. So just so everybody appreciates what we're doing here. In 2017, we did pass legislation that said anybody that was in the downtown overlay just into the downtown district that needed to have parking with their building, they are grandfathered in at this point in time. So now if a new business comes in and wants to change the use of that business, they would be required to either pay or find a different way to increase the amount of parking that they need for that business. So for example, at this point in time, Loretta's is grandfathered in. They didn't have enough parking to begin with, but they were in the business before 2017, so they are grandfathered into this ordinance. But if another building, take Farley's for example, decided to become a restaurant, they would be required to increase the amount of parking needed for that new use, but they would still be able to have the amount of parking. Say they needed 10 spaces that they already have, they don't have to pay for those 10 spaces. If they needed to go up to 30 spaces, they would have to pay the additional 20 spots. So 20 times the $7,500 that we passed legislation on in 2017. So that's really all this is doing. It's just making sure that the regulations from December 17th, 2017, that they are officially grandfathered into the parking. So the committee voted 3-0 to approve this new as amended ordinance.
Other councilors, Councilor Z.
So was this born from a specific problem, or is this something that the zoning enforcement officer, for example, is being challenged by?
I will defer to the sponsoring counselor onto why we needed this.
Yes, it came up to my surprise. So over the summer in July, I think it was, that the planning department, Jennifer Blanchet, thought that the grandfathering was ambiguous, and that a change of use would trigger having to comply for the entire building, even though instead of just the increment. I said that was not the understanding of the council, and we could have a YouTube recording, which I went through, and I provided to the planning board and John Eichmann to make sure I wasn't misremembering it. And so that's why the heading says clarification. It's to clarify for the planning department what the council intended 4 years ago.
So thank you for that. I wanted to understand. So I'm going to support this, but my only hesitation is that what you just stated is the exact opposite of everybody's understanding of zoning. Of course, your grandfathered in. That's the whole point, is that when it's passed, what you have is grandfathered in at that point. So I'm just, how many clarifications can we provide? At some point, that's how again, I'm not an attorney or anything, but at some point, the zoning should be interpreted in a common sense fashion. And the common sense fashion is when we pass a new zoning ordinance, we never go back and make everybody change up to that point. That's to me is a kind of cornerstone of zoning. So I'll support this because it's the intent and it makes sense. I was on the council in 2017. So these take a lot of time and effort. And at some point, just, use what you have to do it. I think this should have been very clearly implied in my opinion.
Other councilors wish to discuss or debate. So this is first reading, roll call.
First reading, and the second was by.
Sure.
Approve as amended, ordinance 89, Council Z.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Lane. Yes. Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shannon.
Yes.
Council Star.
Yes.
Council Vogel. Yes. And Council Wright.
Yes.
All right, just to remind folks, we do have a joint hearing next week with the planning board on short-term rental units and on authorized land taking. So on the 20th.
Chair McCauley, public safety.
Thank you, Council President. 2 items tonight. Motion to approve application 51.
Second.
What we have is an application from Battleground Coffee to have a PGA open lunch party. It's a program in conjunction with the PGA. It's to benefit veterans and patriots, to help them cope with some of the after battle effects using golf as a method. There'll be PGA Tour officials there along from 10 to 2 with the idea that they'll provide instruction. I just wanted to mention the Parks Department has approved this, and ever since the firehouse issue down at the water, the clerk has been sending applications to both Parks Department and Public Safety. This is an issue where, for example, Parks was okay with it, but we had questions about parking and density and those types of things. So we're trying to work together on that. I think the communication is good going forward, but if there's a question, they're using Tracy Park, but why did it come to Public Safety? Parks has already approved it, and we were trying to get some further insight into the impacts to the community. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Other councilors, roll call on the application.
Roll call. Council Z.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Council Lane. Yes. Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto.
Yes.
Council Vogel. Yes. Council Ryder.
Yes.
Motion to approve order 283, rectangular rapid flash beacon at High Street and the Senior Community Center. Second. We got one through a grant. This is a place that used to have a crossing guard. We have trouble getting crossing guards. This is a main safety issue. We heard a lot of public comment about this over time. This is the next available place that they're going to put it up.
Questions, comments, Dave? Roll call.
Approval of order 283. Council Z.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Lane. Yes. Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto.
Yes.
Council Vogel. Council Ryder.
Yes.
Nothing further, Council
Thank
President.
you very much. Chair Tontar, Public Facilities.
Nothing.
Thank you. Chair Vogel, rules.
Nothing tonight.
The order. Councilor Z.
I just wanted to make a request. I'm feeling very behind on where we are with short-term rentals. Could somebody send me whatever the most recent, wherever board committees are? I just feel desperately behind on whatever's happening with that. If there have been amendments, I think there have been substantial ones at times. So I would really appreciate it if through the clerk, you could circulate the latest draft to everybody, just so that in preparation for, even if, yeah, I know next week's just planning, I presume the zoning aspect, but I think we are still talking about them. I really appreciate that.
Councilor McCauley and Chair.
No, I'll defer.
Go ahead, Chair.
Okay, so what's in your packet right now that I brought in last week? That's exactly what we're gonna be working on. That was the amended version that Councilor McCauley brought in at the end of August, and we had a meeting in planning development on it, and I made sure it was brought into the council packet. So what's the last council packet? I think it was last time. That should have the latest.
And what about the general law side? Councilor McCauley.
Yeah, I will honor that request and work through the council to get an updated version for both, even though it was submitted already. There were amendments made. Some of the amendments were based upon legal advice from KP Law. The general agreement has come out of licensing and permit, and the chair of licensing and permit sent a request to KP Law to get clarification on a couple of specific items, and it should be coming back. The intent is that we want to be able to bring those up, but I can send you the version through the clerk that was sent to KP Law prior to their re-review of the general government.
Thank you very much. Next I have Councilor Khan.
Yes, thank you, Council President. I just wanted to remind folks that on November 16th, just a little bit advanced planning, there's going to be the joint meeting between the school committee and the city council to go and get a kind of, I guess, the preliminary phase of the budget setting process, and to have that joint meeting on the school budget and the kind of proposed method moving forward. So I just want to let folks know November 16th, 6:30. Details as far as location, and I know normally we did dinner before, so I don't know any of that yet, but for now, just please earmark that date and time. Thank you.
Thank you. How about a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Roll call.
Council Z.
Yes.
Council Connell.
Yes.
Council Khan.
Yes.
Council McCauley.
Yes.
Council Shan.
Yes.
Council Tonto. Council Vogel.
Yes.
Council Ryder. Thank you.